In 1816, a cartographer working for the British Admiralty submitted a revised atlas to the Royal Geographical Society in London. The revision was routine, at least that's what the cover letter said, but buried inside that submission on page 47 was a note, a handwritten note in the margin from the cartographer himself. It read, "The territory formerly designated as Great Tartary, revised per updated instruction. No replacement name assigned. No replacement name. They didn't rename it. They didn't redraw it. They simply removed it." And in the next 50 years, that exact same correction appeared in atlases published in Paris, in Vienna, in Philadelphia, in St. Petersburg. The same year, different publishers, different continents, the same correction. That's not a coincidence. That's a decision. Before we go any further, let me be clear about what we're actually looking at here. This isn't about whether Tartaria existed. It existed. It's in the maps. It's in the encyclopedias. It's in the diplomatic correspondence of every major European power from the 1600 through the early 1800s. The first edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, published in 1771, dedicates an entire section to Tartary. It describes it as, and I'm quoting directly, the largest country in the world. The largest country in the world. Larger than the British Empire, larger than all of Europe combined, and then within a single generation it was simply gone from every map, every reference, every official record. What we are looking at today is not the disappearance itself. We're looking at the mechanics of that disappearance, because the maps weren't just updated, they were corrected. That word matters. When a cartographer says corrected, he doesn't mean a mistake was found. He means someone with authority told him to change something that already existed. Let's start with a specific date. October 1817, the Society for the Diffusion of Useful Knowledge, a British organization based in London, commissioned a new world atlas. The project was led by a cartographer named John Thomson. Thomson had spent the previous decade producing some of the most detailed maps of Asia ever published. His 1815 atlas clearly shows Great Tartary labeled across an enormous landmass. Roads, rivers, settlements, trade routes, all documented, all named, but in his 1817 revision 2 years later, that same region is reorganized. The label Great Tartary is gone. In its place, smaller regional names: Siberia, Chinese Tartary, Independent Tartary, a name clearly designed to suggest fragmentation, not a unified civilization. Now this alone might seem like a normal cartographic evolution. Maps get updated, regions get renamed. But here is what doesn't get explained in any history textbook. Thomson's 1817 atlas was not the only atlas revised that year. In the same 12-month window, 1817, the following atlas were all revised with nearly identical changes to Central Asia: John Pinkerton's Modern Atlas, London; Conrad Malte-Brun's Universal Geography, Paris; Heinrich Berghaus's Preliminary Cartographic Survey, Berlin. 3 different publishers, 3 different countries, 3 different languages, all showing the same deletion, all within the same 12-month window. There are 2 possible explanations for this. The first, new geographic data was discovered simultaneously across 3 continents and shared with incredible efficiency in an era before telegraphs, before railroads, before any modern communication infrastructure. The second, someone sent instructions. I'll let you decide which explanation requires more faith. But before we move to what happened next on the maps, there is a parallel record that almost no one follows: the diplomatic correspondence between 1650 and 1810. European courts, the French, the British, the Dutch, the Swedish, sent and received thousands of official letters that referenced Tartaria directly, not as a vague geographic concept, as a political entity. In 1670, a letter from the French ambassador in Constantinople to Louis XIV specifically refers to the Tartarian frontier as a boundary that required diplomatic consideration before any eastward trade route could be established. In 1712, a dispatch from the Swedish diplomatic mission written during the period Charles V spent in exile near the Ottoman border names Tartarian representatives as present at a specific negotiation, not nomads, not tribal leaders, representatives, the kind of word you use when someone has the authority to speak on behalf of a structure. And then in the archive records something changes. By the 1820s, the phrase Tartarian in diplomatic correspondence begins to disappear, not replaced, not disputed, just no longer used. The correspondence continues. The region continues to be discussed, but it's referred to by its new fragmented names, as if the diplomats had also received the same memo the cartographers received. But 1817 was just the beginning. What followed over the next 3 decades was something that, when you map it out chronologically, begins to look less like cartographic evolution and more like a coordinated campaign. In 1820, the Dépôt de la Guerre, the French military mapping agency, released a revised series of Central Asian surveys. The word Tartary appears for the last time in their official catalogue. By 1822, it's gone, replaced by administrative zones that correspond suspiciously to boundaries that only made sense after certain political decisions that hadn't been announced yet. In 1822, the same year, the Imperial Russian Geographical Society began a major reclassification project. Central Asia was divided into zones. Old Tartarian place names were transliterated into Russian, then quietly retired from official usage. The towns still existed, the roads still existed, the architecture still existed, much of it still standing today. But the names that connected them to a unified civilization, those were systematically replaced. And here is the detail that most researchers miss. In 1831, the year the last major European atlas to prominently feature Great Tartary was published, something else happened. The International Statistical Congress held its first preparatory session in Brussels. One of the agenda items recorded in meeting minutes that are technically public record but almost never cited was the standardization of geographic nomenclature across participating nations. Standardization of geographic nomenclature, a bureaucratic phrase, but what it meant in practice was this: nations would agree to use the same names for the same places, and the names they agreed to use did not include Tartaria, not once, not in any form. Maps were only part of the story. The other vector of this correction was the encyclopedias. We already mentioned that the 1771 Encyclopedia Britannica described Tartary as the largest country in the world. The third edition, published in 1797, still contains a dedicated entry for Tartary. It describes its governance, its people, its geography, its relation to neighboring civilizations. The entry is 2,400 words long. By the sixth edition, published in 1823, the entry has been reduced to 4 sentences, a footnote, essentially. No explanation is given for the reduction. The editor's preface mentions updated geographic scholarship but cites no specific discoveries, no expeditions, no new surveys that would account for this. By the 8th edition, 1853, the entry is gone entirely, not archived, not cross-referenced, not marked as disputed or renamed, simply absent. And this happened not just in the British Encyclopedia, but in the Grand Dictionnaire Universel in France, the Brockhaus Encyclopädie in Germany, and the Amerikanskaya Encyclopedia, all within a 15-year window, 1838 to 1853. The same 15 years, the last Tartarian labeled maps were being quietly corrected. Different countries, different languages, different publishers, same 15-year window, same deletion. Now consider the census records. Because maps and encyclopedias are one thing, population records are another. In 1646, a Jesuit missionary report submitted to Rome, one of the most detailed demographic surveys of Central Asia produced in that century, estimated the population of the territories it called the Tartar regions at somewhere between 11 and 14 million people. That number is consistent with other European estimates of the era, 11 to 14 million people. A civilization of that size doesn't disappear. The people are still there, their descendants are still there. But in the Russian imperial census of 1857, the first comprehensive census conducted across Siberia and Central Asia using modern bureaucratic methods, those populations are reclassified. They are no longer identified by any Tartarian designation. They appear under new ethnic categories, new administrative labels, categories that had been created specifically in the decade before the census was conducted, which means the categories were built first and then the people were sorted into them. That is not how demographic science works when a region is being studied. That is how demographic science works when a region is being re-rendered. Here is the question that connects the maps to the ground. If Great Tartary was simply a geographic misunderstanding, a vague term applied to an undefined wilderness, then why do the buildings not match the story? Because scattered across the very territory that was corrected off the maps from the Caspian Basin eastward through Siberia, there are buildings, hundreds of them. Buildings with architecture that doesn't match the supposed nomadic tribes the revised maps were suggesting lived there. Buildings with structural engineering that, by the official historical timeline, shouldn't exist in these locations. In Novosibirsk, a city officially founded in 1893, there are civic buildings that, by all architectural analysis, predate that founding by at least 2 to 3 generations. The stonework, the proportions, the foundation depth, none of it matches a city built from scratch in 1893, but the official records say it was. In Samara, in Omskor, in Yekaterinburg, the same pattern repeats. Grand architecture, impossible scale for supposed frontier settlements, and in every case, the official founding date comes after the maps were corrected, as if the correction needed to happen first, before the cities could be given new birthdays. There is one more detail here that I want to spend a moment on. In 1851, the Great Exhibition was held in London, Hyde Park, the Crystal Palace. It was the first world exposition. 32 nations participated. They brought artifacts. They brought architecture. They brought evidence of their civilization's achievements. The stated purpose was to display the full scope of human industry and culture as it existed at that moment in history. 32 nations, and not a single artifact, not a single structural element, not a single labeled exhibit was presented under the designation of Tartaria or Tartary. This is notable for one reason. The correction of the maps had been completed by most estimates within the previous 30 years. If Tartaria had simply been a geographic misunderstanding, there would have been nothing to present. But if it had been something real, something with builders and cities and a material culture, then 1851 would have been the moment to display it under whatever new name they wanted to give it. They didn't. The territory was represented only through the names of the nations that had absorbed it: Russia, the Ottoman Empire, the British East India Company's administrative records, Tartaria itself, the civilization, the label, the inherited material culture was simply not present. At the first global exhibition of human civilization 30 years after its name had been removed from the maps, I want to be very careful here. I'm not telling you Tartaria was a utopia. I'm not telling you there was a global conspiracy run by a single secret organization. What I am telling you is this: the maps changed. They changed in multiple countries, in multiple languages, in the same short window of time. The encyclopedias changed. They changed in the same window. The census categories changed. The diplomatic correspondence changed. The official founding dates of cities built on Tartarian soil, those also changed. Or rather, they were assigned for the first time in the same era. And the one common thread running through all of it, the word corrected, not discovered, not reclassified, corrected, as if what came before was an error, as if the largest civilization on earth, labeled as such in the most trusted reference books of the era, had simply been drawn wrong for 200 years by cartographers across 3 continents. That possibility strains credulity. But here's what strains it further. We don't know who sent the instructions. We don't know what meeting produced this decision. We don't have the memo. We have the result. And the question I keep coming back to, the one that has no clean answer, is not what was erased. It's why the erasure needed to happen so fast. Because slow erasure looks like forgetting, fast erasure, coordinated, simultaneous, across continents, looks like something else entirely. It looks like fear. There is a particular kind of silence that exists in institutional archives. It's not the silence of emptiness, it's the silence of removal. When a document is missing from a collection where its surrounding entries are intact, the absence itself becomes a data point. The archives of the Royal Geographical Society contain thousands of submissions from the early 19th century. The 1816 submission from the British Admiralty cartographer we mentioned at the beginning of this video, the one with the handwritten note on page 47, that submission is logged in the catalogue. The catalogue entry exists, but the submission itself, the physical document, is listed as not located, not lost, not destroyed, not misfiled, not located. There is a difference. A document that is lost is a casualty. A document that is not located is a document that someone stopped trying to find. If you found something in this video that you want to explore further, don't trust my version. Go to the maps. They're archived. Many of them are public. Look at the dates. Look at what changed. Look at what was replaced. Look at the catalog entries where the documents should be and ask why some of them are listed as not located, and then ask yourself the question every honest researcher eventually asks: who benefits when a civilization is corrected out of existence? The answer to that question is the next thread to pull